Well, hello everybody. This is Daniel with Daniel's Bullion Coins. My sweet wife is here today. She's going to be asking me some questions, and I will be answering them for her. Some of the typical questions we get here at the shop.
Yeah.
Go ahead, baby. What have you got?
Well, I'm thinking that a lot of people come in and they are interested in silver. They know the dollar is in trouble, our economy is in trouble. They say, how am I going to actually spend and how am I going to make this silver or gold into things I need, like food? And what do you, that we get asked that probably the most a lot.
We do. We get asked that question a lot. And we get asked it in a lot of various forms. How to convert my silver back into something that I can spend. And that was a real big question for me when I started looking into the gold and silver and the economy situation, because I was in the construction business for years and started to get close to 50, started thinking, hey, I've got to get more economically minded. I'm going into retirement. And the economy, the '08 crash, housing bubble, made me start to think about the same thing. If I buy silver as a commodity to have currency security, how am I going to spend it? So what I did was I went out to the farmers markets and I just went along and I asked the different vendors, what would you take? And I held out the dimes, the quarters, Morgans, the bars, gold, all these different things. And I was willing to trade for food, ammo, tractor parts, whatever I could find. And I did find farmers that were willing to trade in the commodities of gold and silver. What was interesting was I knew gold and silver was the place to be, but having the ability to convert it was the question.
Right.
And they all took dimes, quarters, and halves because of the incremental, fungible, and the authenticity, because you can make change.
Right.
10 dimes is equal to 4 quarters is equal to 2 halves. That's $1. And
People can make that calculation pretty fast. They're already familiar with it.
Yes, that's the key, is to get familiar with it. And I try to explain it to people like this. It's sort of like hiring someone to mow your grass. You can maintain the mower, you can have the mower, and you can mow it on Saturday, or you can bring your coins back to the coin shop and trade them in, and the coin guy will do the work for you. But I like to train people and encourage them to go out and find the vendors on their own, so that they don't have to come back and they don't have to sell at wholesale. They can trade at a retail level, and you can sharpen your skills on trading at a retail level. In other words, $1.40 in dimes, quarters, and halves equals 1 ounce of silver.
Right.
So if you know the spot price of silver, you can do the calculation easily. Say the spot price is $50, well then $50 is $1.40 in dimes, quarters, and halves. And you can half that, you can times it by 2, whatever you're purchasing, then you can negotiate. You can say, okay, it's 14 dimes is 1 ounce of silver, and the basket of fruit is, say, $50, and you can say, well, how about 12 dimes? And they may say, well, 13 dimes. Okay, you've kept 1 dime back, and you've held 1 dime's worth of silver back in negotiating a lower price. And it's the same with making change. I'm getting off track a little bit, but I want to say that the currency, the dimes, quarters, and halves, when I was little, they would say, go to the, when we would have like a snow emergency list or flood emergency.
In Georgia, it was hurricanes.
Hurricanes in Georgia. My wife's from Georgia. I'm from this area, Northern Virginia. And when I was young, ATMs and things weren't as big as they are now, and you needed 1s and 5s. Well, it's the same thing. If you have a currency collapse, you're going to need dimes, quarters, and halves to make change, to get back into commerce and to be able to trade. And so that's
to be clear, that's the 90% dimes. That's pre-1965 dimes, quarters, and halves.
Yes. Yeah, pre-1965, your 1964 and older, dimes, quarters, and halves. And the Morgan dollars are very, very close in the silver content. It's 0.723 ounces of silver in each dollar. So it's approximately 3/4 of an ounce in each dollar. but 1 full ounce of silver in each $1.40.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
I think the U.S. currency is the only one that ever does this. Is all
Yes.
over the world, and we don't
Yes.
have another.
Yes.
So that's the advantage. But I've heard it's also been more difficult to get that kind of 90%. I mean, even with the folks we deal with up in Maryland closely, they're not getting it.
Yes, and in fact, when I was up there at my wholesaler just a couple weeks ago, they had 2 orders. One was for $250,000 of the dimes, the 1964 and older dimes, and they were stacked up, getting ready to ship them out. And there was another large order of 90%. It was stacked up, getting ready to go out. Now there is a lot of 90% out there, and it's still available, but in my opinion, one day it's not going to be available because
Right.
it's the only thing that gives you the incremental, fungible authenticity. Those 3 things are key when you need currency, because it needs to be something that you trust and understand.
Yeah. Now, we also get asked a lot, this is another way off question, but what if I have my gold and silver in a safety deposit box?
That's a good question. Yeah, the safety deposit box. I personally would say that if you don't hold it, you don't own it.
Right.
Because even during the Cerveza sickness, as it's been called, or back during the Big C, we saw that a lot of banks were closed and
Yeah.
you could not access your safety deposit box. And also there are laws governing whether or not you can even have bullion in your safety deposit box. So confiscation and all that, I know
Yeah.
that's like a Mad Max scenario, but I wouldn't have all of my precious metals or all of my assets in one safety deposit box. Maybe you diversify and you have a little bit in there if you
Right.
feel like you'd be comfortable with that. But for me, if you don't hold it, you don't own it.
Right. And then we also have folks coming in wanting to put everything down on a credit card, and and they may have
Yes.
massive debt elsewhere.
Yes.
And we first tell them, what would you tell
Well,
them?
yeah, we definitely shy away from putting money into gold and silver if you're in debt. Because if your interest rate is climbing and you're going to be paying double, say you have a $20,000 credit card and you're just paying the bare minimum, it doesn't take very many years, 4 or 5 years. I don't have the math right in front of me, but you're doubling your
Right.
payment back. You're paying 40,000 back instead of 20,000 back. So my advice is to get out of debt first, especially credit card debt and even a mortgage. Get out of that, and then
If
start.
you can, yeah.
Yeah, if you can, and then try to look at putting gold and silver back. But even if you have a mortgage, you should be putting some
Right.
security back on because gold and silver protects your stored wealth.
Right.
It's the only thing that protects your checking account, your savings account, your 401k. Everything is protected by gold and silver.
Yeah, it's not a get rich quick thing.
No.
In other words, don't come in and buy $1,000 of silver, and when you've got to cash it in next week to pay your rent.
Right. That is
We tell people, please don't do that.
That's
We
a
advise.
heartbreaking thing when we see it here.
It is.
They come in and they think, oh, it's going to go up next
I
week.
know.
Such and such is happening in the economy. Japan just crashed or whatever is
Iran
happening.
is going against
Iran's
Israel, like
stay
right now.
stay away from the hype. And just slow and steady. And the people that come in every Friday and put $50,
Right.
those are the people that amass a huge fortune.
Yeah.
And they're
Slow
very
and
secure
steady.
and slow and steady. Look at it as insurance. You have insurance on your car in case you're in an accident. You have insurance on your house in case it burns down. You need insurance on your checking and your savings account and your assets. And that's what gold and silver does. It's a hedge. It's
Right.
insurance. Look at it as insurance, not get rich quick.
Right, and then for perilous times, it feels like we also, if people don't have any food or water, anything, we try to encourage them to do some of that first
Yes.
before they put a whole bunch of money down
Yes.
on.
I
either gold
really
or
like the
silver.
idea of a rotating pantry.
That's a good
just
idea.
just the
Yes,
things
we
that are your
do. Yeah.
favorite things to eat. Don't buy 30-year food if you're never going to eat it.
Right.
It's going to be in the way.
They say rice and beans, but we hardly ever eat rice and beans.
Yeah, we're not rice
I mean,
and bean
Daniel and I
people.
eat touch of beans, so
Yeah, so
unless it's baked
rotate.
bean, pork, barbecue pork beans or something.
There you go. So yes, do a rotating
Yeah.
pantry. Maybe have some long-term storage thing. Be diversified. I always say to
Yeah.
be diversified, but You know, you don't have to store stuff that's going to go bad. You need to rotate.
Right.
Rotate. Your new stuff comes in, it goes in the back, and then you back
Right.
room or back closet,
Yeah.
and then the front pantry, you move things into that as you need it, and keep conscious of your expiration dates when you purchase it, especially. The last couple of years, the expiration dates have been getting shorter and shorter. So
Yeah.
rotating pantry.
So what would you say, I'm skipping around, but
Sure,
what would you
let's do
say
that.
now with everything going on in the world? You see, like today, the stock
Stock market's down.
went down.
I think it was down
gold went
1,200
silver-
today, intraday. I
Yeah.
think Japan had another, the Nikkei was down another 12%, I think, today, and it was down 4 or 5% each day last week. So yeah, there's turmoil in the markets today. Probably things will recover from this. You know, it's just another bump in the road. We have to see a lot more hit the fan to really see, you know, the dollar lose serious value.
As far as gold and silver, we always say buy low and sell high.
Yes.
Right now is actually probably a time to get in while you still can.
Right, right. Well, silver is
If you can.
extremely, yeah, if you can. And there's always the principle of just, think of the name of it, where you just dollar cost average.
Yeah.
Where you're buying a little bit each week when it's low. You're never going to catch the market at the bottom. But when it's trending down, buy a little bit each week. When it's trending up, just save your money. And then when it starts trending down, buy it. And you'll find your average will be much lower than when you do it like that.
And it's not to panic when you see the market's going crazy. It's like
Right.
on Christ, the solid rock we stand.
There you go.
All
yeah.
other ground is sinking. So, you know, the Lord says silver and gold are His.
Right, right, yes, and we see, you know, in biblically 6,000 years, we can go back and
Yeah.
see that even Joseph. You look
Yeah.
back at that verse in the Bible, that story in the Bible. The Lord said, "Their money failed them." So it wasn't God's gold and silver. They had developed their own payment system.
Yeah.
And it was a little wooden cylinder with a piece of copper laid over it. And they would imprint and hammer into it. And so they could just increase the value of those cylinders, those wooden cylinders. And they created that currency. And so they had a huge explosion in outside of Egypt for currency, sort of like what we're in right now, sort of like the Depression. Just like Weimar Republic printed money. Well, Joseph, they had printed money back then. So it collapsed, their
and the
currency
famine
collapsed.
had
And it
famine.
created a famine in the land.
Yeah.
Right. But the Lord had told Joseph, and they had saved up 7 years, and the rest is history.
Yeah,
It's
that
an excellent
was
story there.
fascinating.
Maybe we'll do a separate video on that
Yeah,
one
that's
day.
a fascinating story. Well,
Very
thank you,
good.
darling.
Well, thank
this
you,
is
baby.
really good. I know
Good
we'll
video.
have other questions later.
Yes, let's
but
do another one
we
soon.
wanted to get one out.
Been a long time since we've done
Yeah.
one. I did videos years and years ago, but
And you had heart surgery. since
yes, I had
then.
open heart surgery 2 years ago this October,
Yeah.
which is what really got me out of doing the videos.
Yeah,
But
but
my
you're
baby
doing great.
is helping me now. We'll see how it
Yay.
goes. So like, share, subscribe. We'll see you soon.